Hi, everybody. Meteorologist Sean Sublett from the Richmond Times-Dispatch, and thank you very much for joining us on this live stream. 11:30 on Friday afternoon, coming up on 11:31. Might have heard the buzz about the storm threat, and that is certainly in play as we go through late this afternoon and early on this evening. Really, the overall storm threat we think is for damaging wind gusts and some hail. One of the things that does concern us going into 6, 7, 8 o'clock this evening is the threat for tornadic thunderstorms. It does not mean that we're going to have a massive tornado outbreak, but a couple of these storms that do get going, again, after 5 up to about 8, perhaps 9 o'clock, there's a lot of things in the atmosphere to suggest right now that some could take on a rotation and indeed drop a tornado. Again, we want to caution this is not a tornado outbreak, but it's something we want you to be mindful of if you're heading out for dinner or you're heading out for the evening. Have a plan in place in the event one of these things does show up. We think most places are going to have just some gusty winds and some rain, but there will be a few isolated spots that are under a threat of some genuine damaging storms. So let's step back a little bit and look at things as they are outside right now. So there's Richmond in the middle part of the screen, and we'll zoom out a little bit, going toward Midlothian, and follow along with us as we pull the camera shot over toward the east a little bit. So there's Route 60 going out toward Amherst County and 360. So going to Farmville, ultimately to 460 in Lynchburg. So this is an hour loop, nothing much going on right now. We did have a few much smaller showers go through Richmond in the last hour or so. But overall, things are going to be quiet for the next few hours. We can zoom a little bit farther out, and you can see that there's really not much going on out there right now. And that really is what's to be expected. Even though it is kind of cloudy out there, we've been outside, you notice the uptick in humidity, and that is going to provide the fuel for the thunderstorms in the coming several hours or so. And there's also sufficient evidence out there. And when we look at the winds, how close to the ground they're light or from the south, and then a couple of thousand or about 10,000 feet up, 2 miles up, they turn more from the southwest. And as those winds turn with height, as you go up in the atmosphere, that suggests the opportunity for the updrafts that make the thunderstorms to begin to spin, which also has the possibility for tornadoes. So let's walk through the next 12 hours. Again, we start this at 12:30. White is the cloud cover, green is the rain, and then the most intense rain will be in yellows and reds. So we run this ahead for the next 4 hours, and you see the clouds kind of pop up, and there are a few showers here or there. Again, let's pull in the let's pull a little bit closer to help get your bearings. So there's Richmond right there, Tappahannock and up toward the northern neck. Farmville is off here. So, this is Chesterfield County. This is Henrico County. This is Hanover County. Charles City's out here. New Kent's here. And then you go to Amelia, Powhatan, Goochland, just to get your bearings on what is out there. So the metro area basically right in this area right here. So let's run the clock ahead forward. A couple more hours, 5 to 6:30. There's the first line of showers and embedded stronger thunderstorms. So getting closer to dinner time, that's when you really need to be much more mindful of what's going on in the atmosphere. The radar isn't going to tell you right here if there is a tornado on the ground at a specific time. What the radar summary can tell us here, this projected radar summary can tell us, is that the time frame for some of these storms when they will roll through. So that's why we're most concerned after about 5 o'clock, this first wave going through 5:30, 6:30 through Richmond. And most things are going to be moving from southwest to northeast, which is typical whenever we have truly damaging thunderstorms. A couple more hours in advance, you see most of that will have shifted eastward off toward the Chesapeake Bay and the eastern shore. There will still be some lingering showers around, but we think once we get past about 8:30 or 9, most of the threat will be done. There is a possibility that a couple of these stronger storms do linger into 10:30 or even 11 o'clock at night. We don't think that's especially likely, but we think after midnight or so, the threat will certainly have shifted farther off to the east of the metropolitan area toward the northern neck and the middle peninsula. So after about 11:30 or 12, don't think there's going to be any further threat of truly damaging or threatening weather. So this is not a situation where you have to worry about waking up at 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning or in the middle of the night to really worry about damaging storms. So later on this afternoon, we do expect a tornado watch or a severe thunderstorm watch to be issued. What does that mean? When a watch is issued, that means conditions are becoming more and more favorable for the damaging storms to develop. In this case, it would be a tornado watch. So that means that we're starting to see the humidity really come together. We're starting to see all those elements beginning to come into place to produce damaging tornadic thunderstorms and thunderstorms that produce wind damage even without spinning. So that kind of threat is also out there. Most of the time we get damage from winds that are straight line winds. So don't get too locked in whether or not it's a tornado, because a 70 or 80 mile an hour wind, whether it's a straight line wind or whether it's a spinning wind, is still going to do damage. Please keep that in mind. So in the event we do get a tornado warning, what does that mean? That means that the Doppler radar has seen enough indication of some kind of a spinning thunderstorm in the bottom few thousand feet of the atmosphere, all right, that may be dropping a tornado, or there's a tornado on the ground. So many times there may be a tornado warning, but maybe you didn't get a tornado. But what we do see in a situation like that, and by the way, tornado warnings are issued, and they are issued manually. They will pop up on your phone, but our colleagues at the National Weather Service office in Wakefield are responsible for issuing those warnings. So they've seen enough evidence from radar or from spotter reports that there is a tornado threat that is imminent. Again, maybe it's a few minutes from dropping on the ground, or maybe it's just a lot of spin 3,000 or 4,000 feet up in the atmosphere, but there is sufficient evidence to suggest that a tornado is an imminent threat. And these are the kinds of things, the tornado warnings, they go on for 30 or 45 minutes until that threat passes. On exceedingly rare occasions, there will be a tornado emergency. And frankly, this almost never happens in Virginia. But maybe you've heard of this happening generally in the plains or maybe into Texas. That's when there's an especially large damaging tornado that's verified on the ground and moving in a highly populated area. Again, I want to emphasize that is exceedingly rare. The two things you really need to be most concerned about are the watch and then the warning. So watch means be prepared. The warning means take action. So what do you do for tornado safety in this case? If you're in a car or outside, the best thing to do is get to the closest permanent building. The whole point of tornado safety is to minimize the threat for being hit by flying debris. Here in Virginia, we generally don't have the EF4s and the EF5s like we see in other parts of the country. They can happen, but it does not happen a lot. So what we want you to do, or what I would do, or suggest anybody do, put yourself in a position to shield yourself from flying debris. So if you're outside or in a vehicle, head to the nearest permanent building. If you're in a mobile home and there's time, if you've got 4 or 5 minutes, head to the closest permanent building. Unfortunately, and people will disagree about this, if you're in a mobile home, if you're in Dinwiddie County, you're in Powhatan County, or you're in Amherst County, you're in King William County, and you're in a mobile home, and it gets really dark, you might not want to try to outrun something like this, because most times you're not going to be able to. Roads have curves, and the tornadoes can go in a straight line if they want to. But the short version is seek shelter in the lowest floor of whatever building you're in, all right? You are trying to minimize the impact from flying debris. So put as many walls between you and outside as possible. That's the key, because it's a lot harder for flying debris to go through 3 walls versus 1 wall or a window. This is why we tell you to please stay away from windows. So again, if you just joined us, repeating the storm threat for this afternoon. Damaging storms are likely for metropolitan Richmond, generally between about 5 and 8 p.m., although there is some indication an isolated storm could last as late as 9 or perhaps 10 o'clock. Scattered wind damage is expected. We would be honestly surprised if we went through this afternoon and there wasn't at least one report here or there of some wind damage, whether that's just a couple of trees down, whether it's a handful of power outages. We don't think this is a massive catastrophic event by any stretch of the imagination, but we do want you to be aware that there is some threatening weather ahead in the late afternoon and early part of the evening. Then after midnight, things really do quiet down. The whole weather pattern really shifts fundamentally after this. So if you're thinking about the weekend, think about wet. Both Saturday and Sunday are going to be chilly. Sunday is going to be especially chilly. So Saturday, we see several periods of rain. And then Sunday, not an all-day rain, but it is going to be a day that is cloudy. It is going to be chilly. It is not going to get out of the 50s, and there will be some sporadic showers around on Mother's Day. If you had the big barbecue planned outside for Mother's Day, you might want to think about what you would do if the rain begins to settle in and start making some plans that way now. We've got a 40% chance there for the showers. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen or it does happen, but that's about what the risk is. We think a 4 in 10 risk that you will end up with some showers at some point on Mother's Day. And then you look at the temperatures for next week. They're all below normal. The storm system that comes through today is going to move offshore from the Outer Banks and just sit there for a couple of days. And then the steering winds are going to kind of force it backward, if you will, back toward the Commonwealth. So after stalling out there and driving this kind of northeast wind off the Chesapeake and the Atlantic into Virginia, it's going to move back on shore and probably bring us at least a few showers on Thursday and Friday. So the rain could do us some good. Would we prefer it not to come on the weekend? Probably so. But a lot of places in Virginia, especially in Richmond and farther north, are a little bit dry. So a little more rain would do us some good. So thank you for joining us for the live stream and the outlook for this weekend. As the storms do approach, we will cut back in with live streams and kind of walk you through what we see in real time, probably 4:30, depending on when the storms actually develop. So thank you very much for joining us for the live stream. We appreciate it. And as always, we appreciate you supporting the Richmond Times-Dispatch.